I was I was just watching they um the announcement of PSVR before like moving on to something else. So
I thought we would do the exact same
honestly,
thing.
because I have no affinity for VR, so every time I see it and people trying them on, I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to get pink eyes. So yeah, I've never had any experience with it. So
Yeah, man. If we want to do a 2 minute discussion on it, I'm cool with that. I just thought there was much to add, and that it may be pricey, and there's a new Horizon game coming with it. That's it.
yeah, I think that's cool. Like I'm excited to see like what that looks like, but yeah, beyond that, I really don't think I have much else to say.
No, yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, I'm hoping a lot of people seem excited about it, so we shall see.
Mm.
You
No,
don't you don't you don't believe that?
they won't be excited when they see that price tag.
I mean, the last one was like $400. That's not like God. What is the Valve Index and the Quest 2? Or like the Valve Index is like cost like a goddamn like arm and a leg, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll ask Lord Cognito from Lords of Gaming and Dividing Dude.
For
He'll know
sure.
you know the price of that Oculus.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We are live, by the way. Just letting you know.
Nice. I
Um,
see it, the fresh logo and everything. Let's
yeah,
go.
man. Yeah.
All right, let me check
Um,
audios and then we'll get started.
Google sounds good. And then in the meantime, I'm gonna put up the thumbnail, and then we can talk about this because I got a lot to talk about with this, man.
We
Um,
are good.
all right, sounds good. Um, all right, so I just put up the thumbnail. You want to tweet this out really quickly?
Yeah, can you actually send? Did you send a thumbnail in the
Yeah, yeah,
DMs?
yeah. I did.
All right, cool. I'll take that.
Cool.
I'll do it. All right,
Yeah.
man. Ready when you are. I'll just craft this tweet real quick and then you can
Okay.
go.
I actually don't even know how to like see like this is like a good like getting back into like the podcast like flow. I feel like, but also at the same time, I don't know how to intro how to intro this one because it's not the normal podcast, man. Like I know how to intro that because we've done it like goddamn like damn near 50 times already. But this man, um,
I
yeah.
don't know. I feel like we're good. Just jump right into it, man. Just jump right into it. Sometimes
All
the
right.
best videos are the ones where you just jump into the conversation.
All right, let me actually pull up this man's tweet really quickly before I do. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so guy, oh man, you're right, man. That tweet really did go viral. Jesus Christ.
27,000 likes.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, welcome to a impromptu little episode, fireside chat of the DualShock and Sense podcast. My name is Soul, in case you didn't know that. I'm joined with Macho. How you doing, man? It's been a while.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? It's a King of Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy fanatic. Nah,
Oh
I'm
man.
excited, man. It's a new year, new me kind of vibe around here.
Oh
So
man.
we're gonna get started with this video. You brought this to my attention, so that you wanted to craft this mini podcast of this topic. What you got lined up, buddy?
Yeah, for sure. Like I we don't have to go on, for too long, but a little bit and see what you thought about this whole situation that popped up yesterday. So for to add a little bit of actually Tuesday it was started talking about PlayStation and a bunch of their like TV endeavors as well. Neil Druckmann got on stage, talked about Uncharted, Twisted Metal was talked about, etc., etc. It was also revealed during that presentation that Ghost of Tsushima sold 8 million, over 8 million copies worldwide since its release. Which big ups to Sucker Punch. That's really really cool. I know me and you are huge fans of that team, so this is definitely
Mm-hmm.
really really cool to see. Um, So yeah, that was announced on Tuesday, and then yesterday we had Jeff Ross, who is the ex game director of Days Gone, basically quote tweeting a article from Game Informer that the talking about Ghost of Tsushima's recent milestone. His quote tweet said, "At the time I left Sony, Days Gone had been out for a year and a half and a month and sold over 8 million copies. It's since gone on to sell more and then a million plus on Steam. Local studio management always made us feel like it was a big disappointment." Hashtag Days Gone, hashtag PlayStation. So, um, so this obviously went surprisingly viral. And this kind of drudged up the old conversation of people being disappointed in Sony saying no to a Days Gone sequel. The Days Gone community fan base came out in full force in the replies talking
Sure did.
about talking about how much they enjoyed the game, and kind of questioning Sony's decision, that this game sells just as well as Ghost of Tsushima, but, Ghost of Tsushima is kind of held up on a pedestal, whereas Days Gone, seemingly Sony is like embarrassed to talk about it. So yeah, I wanted to kind of, sit down, talk with you, and see where your head is at with Days Gone. How are you feeling about it? Do you think Sony, did bend wrong? Anything like that. Really quickly, I want to preface this. Well, I'll let you get your thoughts together because I want to preface this by saying my biggest reaction to this is it really rubs me the wrong way that like. Okay, so Sucker Punch is like, at one point in time it was your sister studio, right? Like this is within, the worldwide studios, Ben Studio, Sucker Punch, like you guys are family, right? Sucker Punch goes out and announces this huge milestone, which I don't think any of their games have ever hit before. I think if you were to combine all of their games together, I don't think they've reached that many units sold. That's pure speculation, but like, I feel like that goes to show like just how big of a milestone this is for that team. So you're right. This is a huge milestone for Sucker Punch, right? This is big news. Everyone's really really happy, and then like the day after that they announced this, this guy quote tweets it and saying, well, our game. You know what I mean? Like it just rubs me as really unprofessional, man. Because it's like come on, man. Like you can't like let them like have this. Do you get where I'm going with this? Because it just
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it
It's
just
it it's like when you're at work and they're celebrating one person's birthday, but your birthday was yesterday.
exactly.
And then you didn't get the cake, you didn't get the song and all that stuff, and which like I get it, man. Like it feels bad times, right? Like because you want to be commended for your like, accomplishment, your achievement. Because 8 million sold is definitely like no number to scoff at when it comes to a new IP, right? When it comes to a game from a studio that hasn't really been making a lot of like critically acclaimed stuff other than what they did with Ben Studio's the one that did Uncharted Golden Abyss, right, on PS Vita.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So, and then they go on to do their own thing, and it ends up being kind of lukewarm. But with Sucker Punch, it feel like there's always like this. It was like this cult classic studio that a lot of fans like you and myself were always gravitated towards with what they do, no matter what it was, really.
Yeah.
So for them to, like you said, to get this kind of accomplishment with Ghost of Tsushima, that not only just has like a sales impact, right? Which I don't think is like the biggest highlight of it. Like, yeah, sure, like that's a huge thing. But I think the biggest thing about Ghost of Tsushima, the reason why it's more celebrated than the IP like Days Gone, is of the cultural impact.
Yeah. And the quality as well. Like it's a good game. So
Uh, yeah, exactly. I'm so glad you said that. The quality is absolutely bar none in Ghost of Tsushima. Like it's pretty much pristine, which is
it's
what.
night and day.
Yeah, yeah. Compared to Days Gone.
Yeah. So
Not to be a jerk about it, but like it's like the hard truth that that game did not launch well.
yeah. So and we'll get into that for sure. But yeah, man, like I'm glad that you agree on that point because it just really it just really came off as like unprofessional that like, the day that he drops this, so now it's like the conversation has become like, oh no, look at how awesome Ghost of Tsushima is. Now it's like, oh, now let like, now Days Gone sold just as much as Ghost of Tsushima. So now it's like, the conversation just kind of like, whether intentionally or unintentionally he meant to do this, now it's shift over to everyone focusing on Days Gone rather than the awesome success of Ghost of Tsushima. And to me, that just feels really, really shitty. Um, can you imagine if, like, friend of the show, Lord Cognito, if, when he made his announcement of, his recent, position at Index, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
okay. Um, yeah, so when he made his announcement there, could you imagine if someone else was like, I don't know, like just did something similar in a similar fashion, was just like, um, yeah, well, but now I'm working at this other great place. Like if they quote tweeted Cognito's tweet of his announcement and did something in a similar fashion, like we would all be looking at that person with like a side eye and being like, that's really, really shitty. Um, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it really rubbed me the wrong way.
Like I say, I think it is. I think it is unprofessional. But again, Twitter is not exactly a place for professional endeavors. It's definitely more of an outlet of emotion and reaction, which I think is what Jeff Ross is coming from. And I can see his point, but I think I don't know. Probably should have kept this one in drafts, man.
Yeah.
Just because it does paint that negative light, and I think it doesn't. To me, it doesn't dampen on the Ghost of Tsushima hype train and what that game did uh, overall. I think that's still like it's still 7 point, and it's gonna live on forever. But with Days Gone, it's gonna have that cult classic because they came out, man. They came out in on Twitter and were like, "This game is one of the best PlayStation stories ever."
Oh, okay. Let's get into that, man. Because that's my biggest thing is the revisionist history with Days Gone, man. Do you remember how this game launched? People were dragging it through the coals, man,
Yep.
and so now I'm seeing people like, oh, it has Days Gone has one of the best PlayStation stories in its history. I saw another guy. I'm not gonna name his name, but he was like, man, as a longtime Rockstar fan, Days Gone really reminded me of a Rockstar game. And I'm like,
Yeah, I saw that too.
I'm like, let's pump the brakes, man. Let's pump the brakes. So
Oh
yeah, it's
man.
and I think I saw you liked this specific tweet, but it really reminds me of the Amazing Spider-Man with that whole situation where people dragged those
Oh yeah.
movies for how many years, me included, and now all of a sudden with No Way Home, it's like, oh my God, we treated those movies so harshly, like it was so good, like like
Yeah, I'm coming out for those people, man. They have no right to love Amazing Spider-Man 2 like I love Amazing Spider-Man 2.
exactly, and just like with the Amazing Spider-Man, like even though it probably made money and made a lot of money, Sony listened to the reception. Clearly, people did not like those movies. Just like clearly, the reviews, the reception to Days Gone at launch, definitely Sony saw that. They listened. They're like, okay, so let's not move forward with this IP. That
You
that's
see what
that's
happens when you listen, though? See what happens when you listen?
I guess so, man.
You still get raked over the coals.
Right? Like that's what I
But
glean from this.
the thing is, if you actually look in that tweet for Jeff Ross's tweet, I think it's in that thread where Sean Layden actually responds, like saying like, "Hey Jeff, I love I love the game. I love what you guys done. I'm looking forward to what you guys keep doing." And someone actually responded to Sean Layden with along lines. Again, I'm paraphrasing here. It's in that thread if you guys want to go see it. But I'm paraphrasing here when I'm saying that this guy responds to Sean Layden, saying like, "Well, why didn't you give the green light for a sequel? Why'd you shut them down?" And then Jeff Ross's response to that very person is like, Sean Layden never shut us down. Like he was always like in support of us. So I have to wonder who's really to kind of Scott, I think his name is Scott Rhodey,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
right?
Scott.
Who's
Yeah.
like
It
he's
would
kind of the one
be
that goes around the studios and kind of like see what's up with what they're doing and kind
yeah.
of content management.
It's both Scott Rhodey and Connie Booth are the ones. that kind of run the studios. But yeah, so it's like, listen, to me, those two specifically, Scott Rhodey and Connie Booth, have been with PlayStation forever, running, worldwide studios and green lighting, various projects. Connie Booth is responsible for making Marvel Spider-Man happen and pairing that with Insomniac. She's worked on various projects from Uncharted to God of War to Spider-Man, Concrete Genie. Like, these two, I do not question these two at all because they have been through them. They have been through PlayStation, they're responsible for some of PlayStation's like most successful and most quality sort of like IP in terms of like greenlighting them. So like I really don't question them if they looked at a Days Gone 2 and were like, let's try something else. Let's try something different.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's again, it's a fine line to kind of cross when it comes to these things, certain projects. It's like you only know like the bits and pieces of it, but it's kind of crazy, just like the response that this is all getting, and like you said, the revisionist history that now Days Gone is like one of the best PlayStation games ever made. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see this back then when it released. I saw everybody was very lukewarm about it. Some
Yep.
people just absolutely dropped it, and then it got the PC hype, which is again sold 1 million according to Jeff Ross. So. I'm just wondering how he's getting these numbers if he's not at the company anymore.
um
That's what I want to know.
yeah, me too. That's that's interesting. But yeah, like on top of that, so obviously people are saying they look at the 8 million and they're like what's going on? Like Ghost of Tsushima sold 8 million, Days Gone sold 8 million, so like what's going on here? But also people need to understand like how did it get to that 8 million, right? Days Gone, within I want to say like maybe a couple months after release, maybe even a couple weeks after release, it was already on sale, right?
Hmm.
So obviously we don't know how exactly that plays out in terms of like the money that Sony was able to make on that game. Obviously it had a really long development, so obviously Sony put a ton of money into this probably. But yeah, you would have to imagine that with all the sales that Days Gone was under, um they probably looked at it and it's just not comparable to Ghost of Tsushima because that's a game I feel like you rarely see on dip below like $50, for instance. Whereas Days
Yeah.
Gone, I mean, it's goddamn in the PlayStation Plus collection, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah. So
Hmm.
I don't know how exactly that adds up. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's interesting to see like where all this critical praise is coming from. I think it kind of came up like twice in the past year or so, man. When Jeff Ross appeared on David Jaffe's podcast, and they're talking about Days Gone and kind of development and kind of like their bad relationship with Sony or lukewarm relationship with Sony and the Days Gone IP, and now again with this. I just feel like it's really bad timing. It's a bad way to start the year, kind of saying like, well, this guy got the best milk in the cafeteria, and I just got, yeah, I got last week's milk. What's going on? Like, why
Yeah,
why didn't we also get praise for this and get the same kind of encouragement? And I think it really does go back to kind of like that cultural impact we're all talking about, and like that really that kind of like that game industry impact. Like Ghost of Tsushima made waves, man.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
in
for
terms
sure.
of in terms of quality, story. I mean, the reviews were hitting. Even post game release stuff, right? It got a full on re release. It got
Yeah,
another expansion. The same didn't really happen for Days Gone because that game kind of came out hot, and
yeah, for sure.
it
And
sucks that it is that way, but it's the way that the kind of the cookie crumbles.
and first impression is everything. I mean, I stayed away from that game. Days Gone is the only PlayStation, first party game from last generation that I have not played. I've even played Knack. I even bought Dreams, for God's sake, man. Days Gone is the only one that I have not played.
I forgot
Um
you bought.
and I returned
I
it a
should
week
have.
later. um
Oh man, you didn't say that. Huh?
but I also want to get your opinion on this whole because I find it really interesting that people are saying that like the whole sales versus quality sort of debate, right? So
Mm,
people
mm,
people are saying so it's clear that obviously sales aren't everything to Sony, right? Because look at Days Gone, it sold 8 million copies, right? Um, so
Look at
then,
dreams.
oh man, but yeah, so it sold 8 million copies, and they still declined a sequel, right? And to me, that says
Yeah.
because they care about, the quality. Obviously, first impressions means everything. Reviews means everything. How people view, their products, right? PlayStation, I think, view themselves as like this pristine, company, and you should expect quality from them each and every single time. So if you fail to sort of match that bar, that quality that they kind of like put like on themselves, then like yeah, they might treat you a little weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I find it interesting that people are like, like I don't not necessarily like shaming Sony, but kind of like dragging Sony when I feel like this is something we should be like happy about, that they want their games to be good instead of like, because I feel like it would have been so easy for Sony to be like, okay, it sold 8 million, okay, let's just make another one, it's cool. But they're like, no, like even with selling 8 million copies, they're like, no, we want you guys to make, something better than this, right? So go back to the drawing board and let's try something else.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's fair too, especially when I don't know. It's, again, we both haven't played Days Gone,
Right.
nor do we have any really sort of interest in playing Days Gone.
Right.
Um, except for when I get like the Walking Dead like vibe, then I'll probably boot it up and like see what it's all about.
And
But
and
even then,
except and
that's
except
a
when
far
I
day from here.
and except when I hear people say that it's one of the greatest PlayStation stories in history.
That's a that's a little far fetched for me. I don't know about that one. But I mean, yeah, because like to your point on the whole sales versus kind of like the reception that sales don't really speak to everything. It definitely helps with like what people want and what people demand for in a game. But then again, some things just don't really fall through those cracks, and I feel like it's okay if that's a thing, because Days Gone had its limelight and it has its people that it loves, and that'll always be there forever. That's not going anywhere. Days Gone is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
If they decide to make a sequel and that demand's really there, that people want another open world third person action game with more in tune motorcycle mechanics similar to Red Dead Redemption 2, then it'll be there. It'll just take a lot more time than what you're expecting. But I really think that the loud majority on Twitter is not going to get a Days Gone sequel approved.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
it's really gonna be up to Sony and them want to put like the extra money in there, and whether Studio Ben actually comes back with a quote unquote more solid idea for Days Gone 2.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and personally, like I, this is just me speaking, but I'm personally very excited to see them do something outside of Days Gone. Like, if you
Mm-hmm.
if you bring me like the list of like PlayStation exclusives, right? Like Spider-Man or PlayStation first party games, right? Like Gravity Rush, Spider-Man, God of War, Horizon, etc., etc. Like I'm picking Days Gone last every single time, right? Just in terms of like the Sons of Anarchy thing with zombies just doesn't do it for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, seeing them, like, obviously there's some talent at that studio, right? So seeing them sort of translate what they learned with Days Gone, maybe correcting, the wrongs that they had with that project, because obviously, Jeff Ross talked about it in his tweet thread that it was a slog of a development. So hopefully they can learn from that and make the next project smoother. Less bugs as well. If they can translate all that they've learned from Days Gone into a new exciting IP that is, vastly different than Days Gone, right? Then I'm all for that. I'm like truly, because personally I would not have been excited for Days Gone 2. Now that Ben Studio is working on something new, now I'm like, okay, let's see what you guys can do now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that I'm truly excited for, and I'm also like really glad, because it would suck if they were that whole thing about the rumor, or think about them being like a possibly being like a support studio. So I'm also really glad that they're getting another crack to make their own original game, right? How do you
Yeah,
feel about that?
100%. I agree. I know I 100% agree with you. Yeah, whatever they make next is something I'm going to be paying attention to because I know it's not going to be the game I didn't have an interest in before.
Exactly.
You know. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I just want to flip the script a little bit now, because you said before that Days Gone sold 8 million, near 9 million at this point. And then lukewarm reception. We see the opposite with something like Gravity Rush 2, where it had favorable reception,
Hmm.
especially within the fans themselves. But who knows really what the sales are looking for that one? But I guess we could assume that it wasn't like as big as people would have hoped.
That
So I think that's where people are coming really into the unpredictable nature of like how games are proved and greenlighted,
I feel like
because
that's
it's how do we go about it? How are we going to predict this stuff? And you really can't.
to that question, and it's I think simply a game like Gravity Rush 2 doesn't cost as much to make as a game like Days Gone. Gravity Rush 2
Mm.
also, just like you look at the development time between Days Gone versus something like a Gravity Rush 2 or a Knack 2, and I don't think it's nearly like as comparable maybe. Um, but yeah, I remember this one quote that Shuhei Yoshida said. I don't remember when, but I feel like it might have been like a PSX, maybe like a PSX or something like that. But and it's always stuck with me. And he said something along the lines of a game like Dreams doesn't necessarily have to be, successful. It doesn't necessarily have to sell like 10 million units because we have games like Horizon, we have games like Spider-Man that will sell those 10 million units and whatever. So it's almost like those games pay for, smaller projects like a Concrete Genie to happen or like a Gravity Rush 2 or a Dreams, right? So yeah, so that kind of thing always like stuck with me, and I think that's why those smaller games can't exist because you do have the heavy hitters that you know make sure that Sony is still remaining like profitable or whatever.
Yeah, but even then, Days Gone sold 8 to 9 million. You know, so
Yeah,
I guess is that really a success? When Ghost of Tsushima comes around the corner and says, "Hey, we just sold 8 million."
but again, we have to think
Comes down
about
to reception, right?
yeah, reception
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
how many people bought it when it was like $20. Remember during one of Jaffe's streams, I think it was John Garvin who was I think like the studio head at Bend or one of like the like a narrative director or something like that.
He was one of the narrative writers on that.
Right. And remember his quote about like if you love a game, buy it at full fucking price, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's
That
and
made headlines for a while.
that ruffled a lot of feathers, but I think this is why. I think this is
Yep.
exactly why, right? Because
Hmm.
obviously Sony gets more money if you're buying it at the $60 or $70 versus getting it at the trade-in bin at GameStop for like 15 or $20 or whatever. So
Yep.
so yeah, there's a reason why he said that, and I think it's great that Days Gone hit that 8 million, but it probably took a lot of price cuts for it to do that. Versus Ghost of Tsushima, probably didn't require nearly as close to as many sales or whatever as Days Gone did.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And on PC too, like you have like random price cuts from random websites. So the fact that it has 1 million on Steam is, I think, just more just towards really the player base than anything else, the people that picked it up. But it could have been from any site. So that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we can conclude this conversation just like kind of final thoughts. Yeah, for me, I just think also funnily enough, in that conversation with John Garvin on Jaffe's podcast, he also said he mentioned that Metacritic means something to Sony, right? Like they look at that stuff and reviews, obviously, right? That perception means something to them, and if you sort of like fall under that bar that they've set for themselves, then obviously that's going to be a problem for them. So I think it's more just of, the perception, how this game reviewed, how this game launched, right? Like, when is the last time we've seen a PlayStation game, first party game, released in an absolute broken state like Days Gone did, right? I feel like it's rare, if ever.
Yeah, even the games that we're not really fans of, like Destruction All Stars, it gets the yellow icon on Metacritic, but that game's quality is you know really good.
Yeah.
Like like the sound design, I reviewed it, and I looked at all that stuff, the sound design, how the game looks, how all that stuff. The game worked. It just wasn't fun. So
Well,
that's
to
it's
you.
and that's played. Stop it. Well, what would you get to anyway? What costume did you unlock?
Hey man, I don't remember.
What are the characters called?
I don't remember.
All right, sit down.
I spent 19 hours in that goddamn game. I don't remember a thing about it. Um,
But no, but yeah, to that point, yeah, it's like again, the quality of that game is like, you can't say that it's a bad looking or a bad sounding game, because it definitely sets that standard quality. And I mean, Kena, Bridge of Spirits, right? Not even a PlayStation first party studio, but it's so synonymous with PlayStation because of the quality.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, man, I think that's the biggest thing. It's not just, solely about sales with them. It's they also really care about the quality, and I think that's something we should be applauding versus dragging them through the coals about Days Gone not having a sequel.
Yeah,
That
I feel like Jeff Frost's reflection was more on, like, again, the reception of the game and the quality that was put out, not really much of like the sales.
Yeah, if this game released, maybe like, God, like it came out April 2019. Like, if it came out, like, let's say just early 2020, I feel like this might have been a different story. Like, it would have, the bugs would have been ironed out, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that just that initial reaction was really like the nail in the coffin for that game. And then you take also, you couple that with the fact that obviously Sony had problems with just how long that game was taking to make. Then
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It
yeah,
was it was definitely fluctuating with other similar games to it, right? Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima open world game came up the year afterwards, and what's another zombie game, or quote unquote zombie game, that came up the year after that?
right,
You
right.
know,
Last was, yeah. So
yeah. So I don't know, if I was Sony, I'd definitely be like, we're not putting out three like super similar games in the same year.
yeah, for sure. But
You
yeah,
know.
it's a pretty complex issue. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just a little taken aback by the revisionist history, man. Because the way I remember it, man, I don't remember people being this behind Days Gone. But but hey, man,
No, don't worry. This memory will be behind all of us in like next week, by Saturday. By the time our podcast comes on Saturday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, people forget that this even happened.
I
And
bet
Days
I,
Gone will be another than one in the wind.
I bet you, like, if Ben reveals their new IP in 2 years from now, and it's like, I don't know, like, I don't know, something crazy, people are gonna forget Days Gone immediately, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, that's gonna do it for this little impromptu episode. You guys can catch us on Saturday for our first episode of 2022. It's gonna be a big game of the year sort of awards extravaganza. It's gonna be really, really fun, man. But yeah, before we get out of here, Macho, what's going on with you? You got anything planned the rest of the day? What's going on?
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna hit the gym and then more Final Fantasy 14. I've been on that grind heavy, brother. We got a lot to talk about. I'm excited for this podcast and the podcast afterwards. Talk about our top 10 games. I think it's gonna be a fun discussion between everybody in the chat, and then between all of us on the panel. But yeah, man. Tomorrow, give or take, depending on the day, we'll see how it goes. I want to do another live stream up on here, and then I'll let you guys know what I'm going to talk about when we get closer. Hopefully, it's actually be able to do something. But nonetheless, join us Saturday.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
for
about
sure.
it for me, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Until then, we will catch you guys later. Peace out.